Last time I talked about what a crazy society the Giver had. But today I look at Gathering Blue, the sequel, and see if this society is any better than the last one. Welcome back to BG's Books. I'm Mr. BG, and today I will be reviewing Gathering Blue by Lois Lowry. So, like I just mentioned, Gathering Blue is the second book in the Giver series. There are four of them, and so now I am halfway through the series, you could say, since I'm reviewing the second book. And I'm just going to say it right off the bat. I didn't like Gathering Blue as much as I liked The Giver. I'm not trying to imply that Gathering Blue is a bad book or anything. I just have a couple problems with it, which I will mention in due time. But anyway, so yeah, Lois Lowry, of course, has continued the Giver series after 7 years because the first one was released in 1993 and this one was in 2000. So that cliffhanger ending that I mentioned in The Giver hasn't been addressed since 1993. So it's been a long time coming, and now we will finally see how things start wrapping up. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into what the book is actually about. So this time around, Gathering Blue follows a girl named Kira instead of Jonas from The Giver. And basically, she is recently orphaned because her mother died from a mysterious disease. Her father was killed a few years ago by hunters on a hunting trip, and she has a deformed leg. And in her society, people with deformities are considered weak and are therefore considered not really worth living in the village, and they are fed to the field, which have beasts in them. But anyway, she doesn't want to die and stuff, so she has to go to trial to see if she actually is worth living and stuff. So she gets appointed a lawyer type of person named Jameson, and Jameson basically convinces the Council of Guardians, that's what it's called, that she is very good at embroidery. And for anyone who doesn't know, embroidery is basically like sewing or knitting or kind of like making clothes or whatever you want to call that. That's called embroidery. And there's this person for the Guardian Council called the Singer who requires a robe and a stick to be able to sing properly. So Kira is assigned to fix the singer's robe. So she gets paired up with this older woman named Annabella, who is kind of like the main embroiderer around the community. And so she kind of tells Kira everything she needs to know about sewing and stitching and everything. But she does tell Kira that there is one color that they cannot make, and that is blue, because there needs to be very specific circumstances to make blue, and those circumstances just never happen. So she's kind of upset about that. In the meantime, she becomes closer with Jameson, and she also becomes closer with these kids named Matt and Thomas, who are friends in her village, because Thomas is in like her same building. And anyway, meanwhile, Thomas hears some crying in the building, which we find out is a little girl named Jo who was imprisoned for her singing ability. She's supposed to take over for the singer eventually, but she is like captured and tortured and punished if she doesn't sing, so she's kind of upset about that. So Kira makes a point where every night she kind of sneaks out and comforts little Jo to just like make her feel better and stuff, and they start becoming friends. So anyway, one day Annabella dies mysteriously, and so Matt tells Kira that she was fed to the beasts. So Kira's like, ah, dang it. So Kira's got to like continue her work, and she finally does it. She finally finishes it. And Thomas, I forgot to mention what he does. Remember how I mentioned the singer's a stick? He does that because the singer needs the stick to remember everything or whatever about the giant song that he sings. So basically, Thomas gets the stick done, Kira gets the robe done, and then it's time for the giant gathering, but At the gathering, Kira notices that Matt is gone, and so she's like, "What in the world?" So anyway, she goes from place to place looking for him. They're like, "Yeah, he left," and he's gone for several days. But when he returns, he brings back a blind man with him, and it's revealed that this blind man is named Christopher, who is Kira's dad. Yes, quite weird. Anyway, basically, his story was that while he was out hunting, one of his fellow colleagues saw his immediate potential to become a next Council of the Guardians member, and so attacked him, stabbed him, and resulted in him being blinded. And it reveals that that guy who attacked him was Jameson, Kira's friend. So that's a little awkward. He apologizes for being out of Kira's life for so long, but because of how bad he was injured, he just kind of had a lot of memory loss and all the other stuff. But he was able to find a really welcoming community further out, so he just kind of was with them for a while. And it was revealed that Matt actually traveled out to try and find some blue stuff for Kira, and her dad is wearing a blue shirt so that they know that blue is very realistic. It's also very funny that I'm wearing blue right now. I did not plan that, I promise. But yeah, that's funny. So anyway, Matt was actually just trying to search for some things to make blue so that Kira could finally have some blue in her village. But he ended up stumbling across this community, and that's where he met the blind man, and then they came back, and then there you go. So Matt brings back these plants, which Kira plants, and then they can start making blue. So anyway, meanwhile, the blind man eventually does have to go back to his own village, and so Matt is kind of his seer because he has eyes, so he's going to be transporting the seer or the blind guy back and forth. And so he's basically like, "Hey, Kira, can you come with us?" And then Kira's like, "I would love to, but I got to finish some stuff up here first. But I will join you once I finish some stuff up, setting up the third book." So then they leave her to do that. She goes back to her thing. Thomas goes back to his thing, and then Joe, now uncaptured, because the priest's feet are like shackled and stuff, or at least they were implied to have been shackled because they're like bleeding and grotesque and stuff. So it's implied that the community kind of imprisons people for their talents. But anyway, so the book ends. Matt leaves with the blind man to go back to the village again. Kira continues her embroidery adventure, and meanwhile, everyone who is freed try to use their talents to save the community. But Matt will communicate between Kira and her father because he is their designated messenger. And that is how Gathering Blue ends. Overall, Gathering Blue was less than, I guess you could say, the sequel that people wanted to The Giver. It still is a sequel to The Giver because at the end of the book, before Matt leaves, he does mention to Kira that there is a boy in the village that he found her father in, with blue eyes and is basically unscarred, and he's blonde, which is Jonas from the Giver. So that's kind of the connection between them. But they're in the same universe. Obviously, they take place around the same time. The book doesn't outright confirm it, but from what I've read of Messenger, which is book 3 so far, it seems to be about 2 years after The Giver ended. And so basically Jonas is like around and he's doing stuff. So anyway, Gathering Blue is perfectly fine as a book. Like, as a book, it's perfectly fine. But if you want it to be a sequel to The Giver, and especially wrap up that ambiguous ending, that cliffhanger that The Giver had, unfortunately, that's not going to be resolved in Gathering Blue. But from what I've read in Messenger, that wraps it up, so stay tuned for that one. But yeah, Gathering Blue, it's certainly not... it's certainly a good book. Yes, it's a good book. It stands on its own. But being attached to The Giver by being a sequel to The Giver when it has almost nothing to do with The Giver is kind of misleading in a way, because it's a sequel to The Giver. It's the second book in the Giver series. You would think that like, oh, okay, so the stuff that happened to The Giver, that'll kind of branch over into this one. Well, unfortunately, that doesn't happen. So if you were expecting that, I think you're going to be a little disappointed. But if you just like to read, just to read, read Gathering Blue as a book on its own, not part of the Giver series, and you'll like it so much more. Because, I mean, the little Jonas reference, that was just at the end, and they don't even call him Jonas. They just say, unflawed boy with blonde hair and blue eyes. That's all there is. So none of the characters from the first book leak over into this one, and it takes place in an entirely different community with entirely different rules. So yeah, if you're expecting it to be a full-on sequel to The Giver, I think you'll be a little disappointed, but as a book, it's okay. However, I do think it would probably be my least favorite of the Giver series. I can't say that for sure yet because I haven't finished the third one and I haven't even started the fourth one yet, so I can't say that for sure. But out of the two that I've completed, Gathering Blue is certainly the lesser of the two, but it's still a very good book on its own. So don't get it twisted. Gathering Blue is still very good, but it's a little misleading to be a sequel to The Giver, or at least how it's marketed. But yeah, so go read Gathering Blue if you just want to read a book, I guess. But yeah, go read it. But anyway, guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed my review for Gathering Blue. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below if you have not already. We are still very close to 300 subscribers. But anyway, I'm going to go get back to reading Messenger, book 3 of the Giver series, and I will return when I have done so. So in the meantime, I've been Mr. BG, this has been BG's Books, and I will see you guys in the next video.